Hey, what's up guys? Today we're talking about some compositing and grading tricks that you can use to make your 3D renders have a little bit more of that camera and film-like feel. Hey, what's up guys? Ryan here again, and today we're talking about tips and tricks of how I like to kind of grade and composite 3D renders to not have them look so digital and kind of give them a little bit more of lens effects and kind of some film effects that, you know, naturally degrade actual footage that we can apply to our 3D renders. So let's go ahead and jump right in. All right, so I have some footage here of just this safe that I used for another project. This is another scene that transitions into the scene later when we go through the safe door. So basically right now it just looks kind of, you know, it looks very digital, not a whole lot's happening. And so now it's our job to kind of take it, give it some lens effects, give it some film effects that can kind of, you know, give it some life instead of looking so plain and boring right now. So I rendered these out as EXR files because I knew I was going to do some heavy grading to it. So EXR files, you know, I can boost it up to 32 bits per channel and really, you know, get some latitude with our grading. If I know I'm not going to do a lot of grading, I usually just do 16-bit PNGs and I just move on from there. So let's just go ahead and I'll show you how I kind of get things rolling to start grading and get some effects on there. And this is also kind of a good little way to also get storyboards out to your clients without diving all the way in. And, you know, once your storyboards get approved, then you can just start animating right in After Effects. So, all right, so first thing I'm going to do is, this does have some transparency, but I'm just going to make a mask temporarily here because we don't want to see the next scene that we're going to be in. And let's go ahead and add a background. Let's go maybe 10% black here. Put that underneath our render. All right, and so we're on our way. And I got a couple of passes here. These are labeled a little bit differently than your normal object buffers from Cinema because this was rendered out of Octane Render. So I actually don't remember what these do, so let's go ahead and see what we got. So this is just kind of, looks like this was one of the mats used at transition, so let's not use that right now. All right, so this is the light that's on the front of the safe. Let me go ahead and drop that on top. So now we got a little light glow going on there. First thing I'll probably do is give this a little bit of a chromatic aberration effect. So let's get our effects and presets. I'm going to use a set channel effect. And let's turn everything off so we get just the red channel. Go ahead and duplicate that. I'm going to set the top one to add. And then on the top, I'm going to invert what I just did. So I'm going to leave everything on and turn off the red channel. So now we have our image where we started. So I'm just going to go ahead and scale this up by, little percentages help a lot to get our, you know, chromatic aberration edge effect there. Maybe I'll exaggerate it for this example. All right, so now I'm just going to keep adding layers and kind of get a look of what I want. This is our safe light. I might change the color on this. Let's give this a blue tint, maybe something like that. Let's go ahead and add a glow. We can get in a little closer there so we can see. We'll bring up the intensity a little bit. We'll maybe have the radius come out a little bit. And I know that I want some more glow effects on this light, so let's just go ahead and I'm just going to duplicate this and kind of get a little bit of a vertical blur in there. You know, maybe something like that. Here, let's go ahead and boost the alpha of that up a little bit. All right, we'll get a little brighter. I might streak it out a little bit more. All right, so already we're kind of getting somewhere, you know. I'm going to put This will be our original layer in case we ever want to reference back to see where we've come from. All right. So nothing too crazy yet. So what else can we do? Let's start adding a little bit of atmospheric lighting to it. So I'm just going to make a new solid. Let's kind of make this a dark sort of blue-white. That. Put this behind our safe. And I'm just going to kind of draw just some sort of random blobby mask around it. All right, feather that out. Might actually bring it in a little bit. Let's go ahead and feather a little bit more. And I'm just going to go ahead and duplicate this. And I'm going to lighten it up just a little bit and have the light extend out from this other mask. All right, so right now I'm just randomizing the points, kind of, not making it look too perfect, but I want this nice little glow behind here. And I'm going to actually put our smaller glow on top, set it to add. All right, now we're getting somewhere. This is looking pretty cool. All right, now we're getting sort of a look. Let's go ahead and feather these out a little bit more. And I'm going to go ahead and turn the opacity down and start mixing things in. Just little subtle effects is what we want. All right, so now I'm going to take our safe. I'm going to start adding a little bit of contrast to that. I'm going to pre-comp these so we don't lose our chromatic aberration effect. And I'm just going to go ahead and get our levels. And let's just contrast it up a little bit. All right, cool. All right, another thing I might do is the edges of their safe are a little bit too perfect. So I'm going to go ahead and just use simple choker for maybe just half a pixel there. And I'm also going to use edge blur from key correct. And this is just going to blur out the sides so they're not so perfect. All right, so we're getting there. Not too much is happening right now, but we're starting to get a look. Now, some other effects we can do to get some more lens effects going are things we'd find in a camera. Let's go ahead and add a little bit more of some atmosphere in the scene, and easy way to do this is just adding a solid, and we just want to give the impression of a little bit of light coming into the scene. So I'm just going to feather that out. I actually might make this mask a little smaller. And I'm just going to feather this out a lot. And let's go ahead and make it more of a saturated blue there. All right. I'm going to duplicate this mask. Might put another one right here. But the key with this is, 5, 6, anything less than 20% goes a long way. So go ahead and take a look at that. I'm actually going to go back to our original solid for our background layer, make it a little bit darker. All right, cool. Another sort of film look is the blacks tend to get a little blue, and you can either color correct this in the curves channel and bring up the blues in your blacks a little bit, or another thing to do to kind of smush the scene together and make it all sort of mix is I like kind of taking just a light blue, putting it on top of everything, and just mixing it down just a little bit, maybe just 5%. All right, let me fit this in there. All right, so we're getting a little bit of, I don't know if you can see it, we're getting a little bit of banding in our gradations there. So let's go ahead and boost this up to 16 bits per channel, start cleaning that up. All right, so let's start adding a few more lens effects. Another thing that I feel like it's missing is some grain. You can go up and add the, add grain or even add noise effect. But I just happen to have this, actual film grain plate. So I'm going to drop that on top of everything, set it to overlay. And now we're starting to get some grain into our footage there. All right, cool. So now I'm just going to make, some small adjustments. Maybe I'll feather this out a little bit more so it's more glowy versus so harsh. And we're starting to get a mood here. This is starting to work. All right, so let's add a couple of other lens effects. I'm actually going to start placing all this under my grain plate, but add a new adjustment layer there. Let's call this optics. And I'm going to go ahead and get optics compensation here. So let me go ahead and just zoom in here a little bit so you can see the effect of the optics compensation here. And if a lens has a wide angle lens, it's going to bow it in a little bit and you can just scale the footage up. Or if you like the look that I like sometimes, is I like stretching it out on the edges. So for now, maybe I'll just stretch it on the edges like this. And let's go back to kind of our working frame here. Another thing we can add to add some imperfections to this is add a little bit of grunge to our lens. So a fast way to do that, if you don't have some, sort of smeary or grunge images offhand, is just use optical flares. And we'll go in here, I'm just going to clear all these lens types. And I'm going straight to the lens textures. Let's see, let's look at smudgy. Smudgy's nice. Let's go ahead and go with this spastic one. I'm just going to turn the brightness up a little bit so we can see it and we can adjust it when we get back out here. And I'm just going to set this to screen. And again, we're just going to mix it in, tone it down, be subtle with it, place it underneath my grain plate. All right, so the next thing I'll do is I'm just going to add an overall glow to our footage. Kind of get a little bit of that diffusion, a little bit of that imperfection to it. I might just go ahead and, let's see, let's go with all white here. We'll go with AB colors. And I'm just going to increase the radius so we can see what we're working with here. I'll bring up the threshold so not everything gets too much of a glow. And I'll turn the intensity down just a little bit. So we're getting just a subtle, nice little glow. If you look right here, our background is sort of peeking behind and getting on top of our safe, which kind of integrates into the scene a little bit more, which looks really nice. All right, and so we're basically just adding things to kind of, keep a look going here. So I'm liking how everything is looking. This might be the time where I go ahead and just start doing some overall adjustments. So I'm going to make a new adjustment layer. I'll just call this CC for overall color correction. Gonna go ahead and use the levels again. Let's see, I'm just kind of playing with it, get our contrast up a little bit more. Add a little curves to this. And in the blue channel, I'm going to go ahead and add a little bit of the blue back into the shadows like we were sort of talking about earlier anyways, just because, helps make it give a little bit of color, a little bit more atmosphere. All right, let's go forward a couple frames just to see what we got. So we got nice little glows coming off of our highlights. Let's go ahead and add a vignette. The outsides here. Just going to use a solid for this. Double click the elliptical mask and just invert it. I'm going to go ahead and feather it 300 or so. And you know what? I'm going to actually change this to multiply so it blends just a little bit more. And again, making it subtle, just bringing it down a little bit. We'll go ahead and duplicate that layer. And we'll call this our blur vignette layer. And I'm going to go ahead and just add a fast blur. Repeat edge pixels. Let's turn it up a little bit so we can see it. And I'm going to turn the opacity back up to 100. Let's make this blur 50 for now. And go ahead and just make this an adjustment layer. And now we start to have a little bit of a blur on the outside of our edges there. Might go ahead and bring in the expansion a little bit. And let's just set this back to normal. So there we go. I might actually put that underneath my vignette. And make sure repeat edge pixels are on. A little bit too much feathering. Let's go back down to 150. Maybe this blur is only 10%. All right, so we got a little bit of vignette going on. The overall look is still a little bit too perfect, so I like to add a little bit of a Gaussian blur over the whole thing. Maybe 0.5. And I'm kind of stacking up a lot of effects, maybe more than you might want to use or I would actually use, but I'm just kind of showing all the sort of different tricks you can help to really sort of, you know, make your 3D renders shine. All right, and the last thing I'll add to the scene is a little bit of motion blur. For this, I usually use Real Smart Motion Blur, but another effect that's built in is you can use CC Force Motion Blur. It's a little bit slower, but you know, you get sort of the same effect. And we'll turn this up to 16 samples, 180-degree shutter. That's what, you know, that's what a film camera would use as well. And the last thing you can do that might also help is let's do one more adjustment layer. And this will be kind of our final overall look. So this will be called finesse. And I'm going to go ahead and use color finesse on top. And the reason you might want to use color finesse is once you kind of get into the full interface here, it'll help you see your levels. You know, you can play with more hues and tones. It's a fast way to be able to try different colors and looks. All right, so here we are inside of finesse. And, you know, we can see where our black levels are at, you know, where our highlights are at. And this is where you can kind of start playing and change the overall look if you want. So now I'm just going to click the controls here. Let's just click all these highlights, midtones, and shadows. And let's go to shadows. And right now I want it to just touch 0 here. So let's go ahead and maybe I'll just move the pedestal down. Let's go to the highlights. You know, we're kind of clipping here at 100, so we can go ahead and let's just bring the brightness down a little bit. All right, so that's looking pretty good. Other things we could do is let's go ahead and maybe it's a little bit too saturated. We can kind of kill the blues a little bit, get more of this, not quite monotone. We still have a little bit of color, but bring that down a little bit. And if you want, you know, click the hue offsets. We can get in here and, you know, maybe just start with a crazy color and kind of just change the color wheel around and find another look that you might like. I'm good with how we kind of have it, so I might just go ahead and reset this. Let's click OK. All right, cool. So that was just sort of a fast way of getting some lens effects on your 3D renders. Let's go ahead and see. I'm going to take a little screenshot of that. And let's solo this and just kind of compare where we were at to where we are now. So there we go. All right, so some of the last little finishing touches we can do is I'm going to go ahead and solo our safe. And since it's kind of coming out of the darkness, I'm going to go ahead and add a camera lens blur here. Let's add that, kind of give it a little bit more of a depth of field effect. So we'll take that, keyframe it, and I'll just kind of go up 30 frames here. And we'll set it to 0. And then also, while it's blurred out in the darkness, let's add a levels effect and go to where the blur is done, set a keyframe, and when it starts it's going to be in the darkness, so maybe we'll kind of just sort of bring this down, bring the whites down, and just have it come out of the darkness and into focus. All right, so last thing we can also do is, I know I keep saying last time, this might be the last effect. Although we could just keep adding effects forever, couldn't we? Let's make a little highlight flare. And this is the flare that'll come on in the very beginning to sort of show that it's entering from the darkness. So go back to our trusty optical flares. We'll add that. I'm going to solo the flare and the safe for now. And let's turn our hiding off. We'll put that right on top. And let's pick a better flare. One of the free packs that he has is the Conspiracy pack, which I actually really like these flares. I think they're pretty cool. Let's see. Let's just go with a subtle flare. Yeah, this is cool. Federal Reserve. One other thing we could also do is, let's close that. I'm going to go ahead and rotate this to match our other, lens highlight flares that are kind of vertical look versus horizontal. So let's change that to 90. And let's make it a little more subtle. So I'm going to go ahead and keyframe the scale and brightness. Press U to kind of look at that. Let's have it, let's see, let's go up 1, 2, 3, let's say 3 frames. It'll pop on. And let's also, while we're here, let's see, 1, 2, 3, the flare pops on. Let's go ahead and let's adjust the position XY and the center position. And let's see, 1, 2, 3, let's go 30 frames. And let's kind of have this, let's have the XY sort of, let's have the center position kind of have that flare fan out. And you know what, let's say this is on the corner. So, all right, so let's make those even there. Let's go back 10 frames, and let's just kind of, just by hand, I'm going to go ahead and keyframe it right on the edge. Let's go ahead and unsolo these to see what it looks like with the rest of our grade. All right, and there we go. We're starting to get things happen. It's starting to look really great. Probably still a little large, but we can always adjust that later. And there we go. We add a little bit of a light, a little bit of transition on. And it kind of introduces our subject and transitions off the screen. All right, cool. So that was just a quick way of, kind of not making those 3D renders look so digital and so perfect, and, kind of roughing them up and, making it look bad is what kind of makes it look good. So I hope that helps. Next week, Tuesday and Thursday, I have a 2-part tutorial coming out. It's kind of a longer one. It's going to be a Cinema 4D, 3D extrusion intro that comes together. Then we're going to take it into After Effects, color correct it, make it look nice. So if that's something you're interested in seeing, go ahead and subscribe to be updated on that. Otherwise, if you have any questions, leave a comment. And hey, thanks again, and we'll talk to you guys next time.